Hi, I'm Ems, aka on Deck and Wings, and in this video I'll be painting up some Grimbright terrain, which I've printed. Please do like, comment and subscribe, it all helps my channel out. So as I said, I 3D printed some panels out. These are very grimdark looking and would be great for like Warhammer 40,000 or like Necromunda. I'll pop the link in the description below where you can grab these. They're from Thingiverse and they're free. There are different designs to these within the files and different parts which can attach onto them. Unfortunately, I didn't really print these as well as I could do. There's some warping at the bottom, so these aren't pre-supported. You will have to add your own supports to them, so just keep that in mind. And when it comes to resin printing, it can be a bit finicky when it comes to like large flat pieces, so just make sure you've got enough supports around the corners. This is from a separate file which I printed. I'll pop this in the link in the description below if I can remember where it came from. I think it was Thingiverse. And it's like a diamond pattern square. This printed out a lot better than the other two. And this is great again for like sci-fi and like 40k type of stuff. This was actually smaller, but I've sized it up. And all of these flat panels I think would be great if you like glued them to some, you know, like thin foam or some card or some plastic, and you can make like a larger diorama or terrain piece if you wanted to. I've skipped ahead here and I primed the models. I didn't paint it in black first, I just went ahead and sprayed it with a colour can from Colourforge. This is Hydrax Brown. It's a really nice like Rhinox hide colour from Citadel, you know, that very dark kind of off black brown colour, which is perfect for the rusty look which I'm going for. Moving on now, I'm going to be adding some paint to this. So I've got Silver Verde from Darkstar Molten Metals. This is a lovely colour. It's like a kind of like aged silver colour, which is perfect for the project I'm working on. And then I've grabbed a Royal Gold as well from Darkstar. This is to add a really nice pop of colour. Royal Gold by Darkstar is like one of my absolute favourite colours of all time. It just pops so well. I'm using my Artist Opus brush here. I honestly don't use these enough. I think that's the thing with more expensive brushes. You kind of psychologically don't want to use them, which you should use them, I guess. But I tend to use like cheap makeup brushes when it comes to terrain, but I thought I'd use these today just why I had them to hand. I think this is a nice quick way to get some rusty looking terrain done. So that Hydrax Brown has that nice dark almost rusty colour to it, like aged rust. And then like dry brushing over the top some silver just makes it pop. So we still have that dark brown underneath to show like rusty bits. If you might notice in this video, my camera work is a lot better. And I do have a better setup now for filming videos. That was one of the things which has kind of been putting me off from making videos. I've just been busy in general, but it's kind of hard to stay motivated when you're busy and then you might have a couple hours to yourself. And having that motivation to make these videos, but then on top of that, having the stress of like setting up the tripods and all that other stuff just didn't appeal to me. So I have a better setup now. Just a cut out from the video here, I just wanted to show you what it's like. It's like this extendable arm thing, and I've got the new clasp for my phone to film on. Banana for scale, I'll put the link in the description below where you can grab one of these. I also have a new lamp as well, which is brilliant. This lamp was kindly sent to me from a company called Neatfi. I will probably do a video in the future reviewing this. It's really great to have some overhead lighting, and it's brilliant. But all of this combined with the overhead lighting and better overhead filming, it just makes it so much less cumbersome on my desk. I feel like I can actually see what I'm painting and the camera and thing isn't in the way as much. And that's like half the battle with painting is having an area set up and feeling comfortable in your environment and actually enjoying painting. Now I'm just adding some of that Silver Verde to some bits on the other panels here. These colours pop really well. I love Darkstar Molten Metals. I've said it ad nauseum, but they are definitely my favourite metallic brand. They specialise in them and they have so many different colours within the range. I love like the really bright, vibrant colours and also like these more like aged and almost like rusty colours. You know, they Silver Verde and then they have like some like Baroque gold, so it looks really nice and aged. I do think metallic paints in acrylics for miniatures have improved so much over the years. I like the old Citadel ones, even the current Citadel ones aren't that great, and it's so nice to have some that have great coverage and just really stand out and have that intensity. It is nice to be able to make videos in a longer format like this again. I obviously keep consistently doing them on like Instagram, very short reel ones, but they can get a bit frustrating, and it's nice to just kind of relax and make longer form videos sometimes like this. And I know it's kind of getting harder now on YouTube to get more traction and people to follow you and stuff. Even some bigger accounts kind of struggle with that now with longer form videos, so it's just nice to still make them, and thank you if you're watching these. I'm just smushing on some of that gold paint here. I just got a random brush. Like I said, this pops really nicely and it just adds some more interest and variation. As I said in the description of this video, it's more Grimbright than Grimdark. Grimbright is kind of where we want something to look rusty and worn, but we still want to have pops of colour. Because really, in reality, when it comes to rust, it's not just dark colours, there are a lot of other colours which come through. And obviously sometimes like nature can take over and things like that. And I know it's not everyone's taste, and it can be a bit, you know, gaudy and a bit gorish sometimes, because it's quite messy and there's quite a lot of colours. But I think it can be done right if you just kind of keep it subtle just enough, and it can be like a fun way to change things up. I've just skipped ahead here, and as you can see, I've put the gold down on both these panels. And now I've got Ivory from Pro Acrylic, really nice brand. And what I'm going to be doing with this is there are some skulls like embedded into the like wall of this, which I think is great. It always adds a lot of more like grimdark gothic atmosphere to it. And again, I'm just smushing this on. I'm not being overly neat. I just skipped ahead and I'm putting some of these over the light fixtures. And the reason I'm doing this is to kind of create like a glow effect. So if you put like the white down first, or like an off-white colour, and you thin down a colour over the top of that, it kind of makes it pop a bit more, if that makes sense. Moving on and focusing on those like glowing light fixtures, I've got some contrast paints. I've got a blue, I've got a red, and I've got a green. I really like the warp lightning colour. And I'm thinning these down with some water. Contrast paints can be good as washes or glazes if you want them to. I don't really use just pure washes anymore. These fidget popper things are great as a dry palette. I know some people like using them, I do. The only thing is sometimes you get a bit of like residual paint like embedded stuck into them. So make sure you clean them out good enough. So I've thinned these down with some water, and I'm just going to wash these over the bits where I've left it white to add some glow effect. Don't necessarily have to do this. I mean, they look kind of cool as they are, those panels, but I just wanted to add, like I said, that kind of pop of colour just to make them a bit more Grimbright-ish. So here are the colours added to like the light fixtures and the little monitors. I think these look pretty cool. Next up, I will be using some oil paints to really emphasise the rust elements and to create some more colour. You can buy cheap oil paints if you want to. Like these type of things, you can buy them in big packs. They aren't the best, but if you're on a budget, they can work, especially if you're just using them on terrain and things like that. I would recommend, though, buying some good ones if this is something you're going to be doing a lot of. Winsor & Newton are probably one of the best, more budget-friendly ones. You can get these in a lot of art supply shops. And if you look after these and make sure the lid's on, they'll probably last you a lifetime because you'd only need to use a little bit of them. You can use oil paints for other things and paint them on top of acrylics if you want to get a bit fancier. You know, you can use like flesh tones and stuff. And they're really great, I would say, for like, you know, large busts and more for display miniatures. And there are specific ones for miniatures. There's Aberteal, sorry if I'm butchering that name. They do really great range of oil paint specifically for miniatures, but they are a lot more expensive in my opinion. But again, they will probably last you a lifetime compared to acrylic paints, as long as you keep the lid on them. You can't thin down oil paints with water. You have to use a spirit, a mineral spirit, or white spirit. I don't like using white spirits, even though it's a lot cheaper. It irritates my skin and my lungs way too much. And even if I'm wearing a mask or in a well ventilated room, I can still like feel it on me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. So I use a low odor thinner, and that's usually what's recommended. There are other alternatives to making your own oil washes. You can get these pre-done things like oil brushes. These are great because they're less messy and they're more designed for miniature painting. There are pre-done oil washes out there. There's some great ones. They're basically just an oil paint mixed with a thinner, and you could just make them yourself in a glass bottle if you wanted to. It's just a bit less hassle and maintenance if you just have them ready to go, and they can be a bit more expensive, but it's completely up to you the way that you want to do it. So I'm putting some of this low odor thinner into this container here. I would recommend using like a small little container or like something like that to decanter your paints into your oil paints. Just be careful when using chemicals like this. I know the bottle lids are made like medicine bottles, but just be careful where you leave them, be careful where you leave these liquids, etc. So I'm just using a cheap brush here. When it comes to oil paints, you need to use synthetic brushes. You can get more expensive high-end synthetic ones for oils, but just buy some cheap ones, because most of the time it'll ruin your brushes anyway, unless you clean them. To clean your brushes after oils, you'll have to wash them in like a mineral spirit, like a white spirit, or, you know, the thing you actually use to thin it with. So what I've done is I've put some of that oil brush down, and then I've got that low odor thinner, and I've soaked my brush in that, and I'm just going over where I put that brush strokes. And as you can see, it's thinned it down now, and it's creating this really nice like rusty wash. Now, oil paints are a lot more vibrant and a lot more intense than acrylics, which is why they're so great when it comes to washes. It adds a lot of pops of colour, and it really fits in theme with this Grimbright look I'm going for. You can remove excess oil paint with a Q-tip or a wet wipe, and you can just rub it away. And doing this as well creates some variation, and you can dip this Q-tip in some mineral spirit or low spirit odor as well, just to make it easier to remove some of the oil paint. I would recommend having some wet wipes or a wet cloth to hand, as oil paints can be messy and you don't want to stain your hands and your clothes, etc. The downside with oil paints is they can take longer to dry. So you can get these things called fast drying mediums, and you can put this over the top, and this can help make it dry quicker. Make sure you put these to like one side, out the way of like children and pets, and even your own hands, so you don't, you know, stain them and touch the oils. I wanted to add even more colour, and I've got this Aberteurlung turquoise. I love this colour, it's so vibrant, and it's perfect for adding rust. The downside again with some of these oil paints like this is they're in these big tubes, so when you squirt them out, quite a lot of it comes out of the tube, which is a bit of a pain in the backside. But if you mix them on something like this, like I said, it's like a porcelain or like a little metal tray, you know, like the ones you would get when you get sauces in a restaurant, those can be great too. You can buy those on eBay and whichever other websites, or you can even just use a small plastic container. Just make sure you don't drink it if you're using a plastic cup or a cup to mix these. One of the upsides with oils is, with them not drying, is that they last a long time. So if you make a big batch or accidentally make too much, you can set it aside and come back to it a few days later and it'll still be wet. Or another option would be to decanter that into a small glass jar or a plastic container with a lid on it, and then you can always go back and use those oils again, like weeks or months later. Just really make sure the container's sealed enough, because oil paints are very messy when they go everywhere. So you might want to grab an apron or wear like an old t-shirt when you're doing this. That's kind of the downside to them. You kind of have to prepare to use them, in my opinion, especially if you're mixing your own oil paints. They can be tricky, but they are worth it. As I said, rust doesn't have to be bland and a restricted palette. You can use colour, and like I said, if you look at rust in real life, there are like chips of paint, there's different colours of rust, there's different verdigris, nature takes over. And I've always been very much inspired by the post-apocalyptic genres, especially video games. I love walking around on video games and getting really inspired by that. There's a term I've mentioned before, which I always love, and it's called Destroy Beauty, and that originates from the game series Gears of War, which is one of my favourite franchises of all time, and I love the scenery in that. It's not just your typical kind of grimy war zone or like apocalyptic thing. There is a lot of like lovely, like baroque and like grandiose kind of architecture, and you kind of see that crumble and the rust and the nature take over. It's very beautiful. It's cool to walk through and get inspired by. If you're still watching this, thank you. It is harder and harder to kind of gain traction, and people's attention spans are what they used to be since, you know, short videos came out. But it is kind of relaxing to do these more simple videos like this and just kind of talk over them and not have to think about them too much. And I always kind of find I'm inadvertently passing on knowledge, even if it's things like this. So I've introduced maybe some people to oil paints, the term Grimbright, and Destroy Beauty and things like that. It's all about getting inspired and being creative and so on. And as I always say, miniature painting is art, and you can find your own inspiration. You don't have to just paint like the boxer and following those steps. Although I do think there is a lot of, you know, skill set with like heavy metal painting. It's nice to be able to paint something and it be uniquely your own, and look at other styles, etc. And I think these look pretty cool. Thank you for watching. It's been great to get back into making longer form videos for YouTube. I think this is very much encapsulated that Grimbright look I was going for. If you'd like to support me, I do have Patreon, or you can donate. Otherwise, you can grab a t-shirt. As always, thank you for watching. Remember to enjoy your hobbies for yourself, respect that people enjoy them in their own ways, and at the end of the day, they're just war dollies. I will see you in the next one.